Remarkably, the Palm Sunday story shows up in all four Gospels. And if you're interested in reading them, when the sermon's posted online, you'll be able to look them up and see the different emphases that each story gives. I've chosen the Mark one today because it says the most about the animal, about the donkey. It actually gives 7 of its 11 verses to the animal and to the story of Jesus procuring the animal. In Luke, there's a bit more attention to the question of prophecy and how this was all foreordained and it's just something that's happening. In Matthew, we get a lot of attention on the palms and a little bit less on the donkey. And in John, we get an amalgam of the whole thing, but it's pretty quick in John. You got the donkey, you got the palms, you've got the parade, you've got the prophecy, and you've got that remarkable entry into the city of Jerusalem. So it's such a big story that I'm going to stick with the donkey for a while and do so really in honor of what happens there. It's so understated. Jesus tells his disciples to go find a colt, one that has never been ridden before, and to untie it and basically steal it from whoever's colt it is. And the disciples say, well, what should I tell them is going on? And Jesus says, just tell them that I need it. I've always imagined that Jesus had no idea what was going on, but that he really knew he had to go to Jerusalem, that there was an intensity in him about needing to change what was happening in Jerusalem. And so he told the disciples to go get him an animal, and the disciples did it. And only in Mark do we have this remarkable sentence where Jesus says, okay, when you take it from them, please tell them I'm going to return it. And not one of the 4 Gospels tells whether he ever did return it or not. So this story about approaching the parade from the back of a beast on an animal that's been taken mysteriously from outside the city, is just one lens on the central part of the Palm Sunday story, which is that it is a parade. It is a public demonstration. It is something that happens by ordinary people taking over their space, going into Jerusalem. So it's a parade. And I want to talk a lot about parades today because everybody thinks it's just so cool to be in a parade, right? To kind of take over the streets, to go outside of your norm. It's not always so. And an email from Elise Higginbotham and Max Surranjandita this morning, some of you may have seen it, about a demonstration that occurred in Jakarta, telling you that demonstrations can come from the right as well as the left. They can be acts of repression as well as freedom. And what Max and Elise wrote, they're missionaries over there now, is that the Catholic Church in West Jakarta was sealed for 3.5 hours by Islam, saying they were community groups, but clearly revolutionaries, saying that the Catholics had no right to worship, and so they locked the 45 parishioners in for 3.5 hours. After a similar group, not the same group, at 2:45 yesterday afternoon in West Jakarta, bulldozing down the Protestant church at worship, with the people begging them not to bulldoze, but coming from an angry demonstration to the Protestant church and bulldozing it, and then going simply to seal the Catholic Church. My title, and also I think some of you have heard, and just get ready for this, that there are rampaging Buddhist monks, rampaging Buddhist monks in Myanmar for the last week or so. Again, interreligious prejudice demonstration gone too far. When citizens' energy erupts into parks and streets, sometimes it's a good thing. When leaders like Jesus take people into Jerusalem, sometimes it's a good thing. But the end of the exercise, is it not, is always to get good leadership and to restore law, order, democratically controlled. So we go to the edge on behalf of something really good that could happen. Jesus, of course, finally explained what he was doing in Jerusalem, and he explained it in modern language as saying, we need to get good leadership around here. We need to change Jerusalem. We need to feed people and clothe people. And the leadership that we currently have isn't doing that, so we enter by parade into the city of Jerusalem to make a change. When Jesus does this, I think it turned out good, but the reason I think it turned out really good was his attitude. So you probably thought this get off your donkey sermon was going to be one of those hellfire and brimstones that says get off your donkey and go do something and create change. I'm going to tell you to get off your donkey and on it quietly, carefully, nonviolently, aware of the stakes. If you go out there and lead people in the name of new leadership and you don't make it into democratically controlled, fair something, all you've done is ratify the next group of people who want to break the laws. And I want to emphasize what I think was great about the way Jesus got on that beast so carefully and quietly. Didn't brag a lot about what was going to happen on the way in, didn't even know exactly what to say until he got there and he saw the power of the people coming with him, putting their clothes on the colt, putting branches they struck from the field down. What was the authority and credibility of his leadership? He was quiet, he was careful, and he had people with him. None less than Marcus Aurelius, in the great book on government and how to govern, the Meditation, says, the best revenge is to not become like the people who hurt you. The best revenge, don't become like them. Nietzsche stole that thought, I think, from Aurelius, or so I'm told, and he said the same thing another way. Let me not become the monster I am destroying in you. What was great about Jesus' parade was that he refused to become the monster he was trying to destroy and didn't even act like there was a monster, but showed another way, a quiet way, with real people with him. So a little more context on parades. I don't want to leave here with West Jakarta being the only thing on your brain. The most famous parades of all have happened right in our neighborhood, mostly in Union Square in New York City. There, Abraham Lincoln launched his campaign that finally ended the Civil War. Emma Goldman spoke on August 21st, 1893, to a crowd of mostly men. Can you imagine what she was like, standing there talking to a bunch of men, long before anybody thought women should open their mouths at all? Emma, of course, was a great anarchist. My daughter is named for her, Katie Emma Goldstein. On that day, Goldman famously suggested that workers steal bread if they didn't get just wages. She was deported for that and many other things. That's the kind of person you don't want around. Now, when we think about American history, did Emma Goldman finally help us or hurt us? I believe she helped us. She went to the edge and there fought hard. The Jesus way is different than the anarchist way, and we need many different kinds. Andy Warhol, of course, gathered more than one demonstration on Union Square, and there it was in 1968 that he was shot by Valerie Solano, who said he had too much control over her life, but only after he had gathered thousands of people and made that really funny speech, which goes to the heart of nonviolence, about how everybody gets 15 minutes of fame, everybody. The ILGW launched the International Ladies Garment Workers there, and people wouldn't even give them the dignity. They said it was a parade, then the union organizers said it was a general strike, and the newspapers all listed it as a general revolt. And if you think Union Square is crowded now, you should see the numbers who were there then. A parade can be a demonstration, a revolt, a march. Interestingly, we all talk about permits, don't we? How can you really tell something's about to happen when all you have is the people's permission and possibly not a permit? Notably, the people who disrupted the Catholic Church in West Jakarta last night and sealed the people in, locking them in their own church in a kind of weird sanctuary, said the reason they did it was that the church didn't have a building permit. So many public events have come so close to here, right where we are right now, that it almost takes your breath away. This week was the 102nd anniversary of the Triangle Fire of 1911, which killed 146 people and erupted all the way from our neighbor over here, Green, right on that edge of the park. There was a demonstration all the way down, filling all of Union Square. And you know what that demonstration got? It was angry, it was mean. It got $75 per murdered woman compensation to the families. It's not enough. Stanford White, whose imagination built this place and who lived at 21st and Gramercy and often complained about how often there were public spectacles close to him. He was murdered in the very building that he built, the original Madison Square Garden. Need I mention the Weathermen across the street, which many would argue were one of the more violent eruptions of the 60s, or the great number of seamstresses who gathered and gathered and gathered. Can you imagine being a seamstress and then going to a demonstration? Some of you can, because some of you this afternoon have work to do, and you'll be over at Stonewall. All of these things remind me ever so much of the disciples wandering around in Bethpage, outside of Jerusalem, looking ever so much like they usually did, like the Three Stooges, saying, what are we supposed to do now, and why are we doing it? Some of you were present here on Friday for the very small, very meaningful, petite demonstration for immigrant rights that lasted for 8 hours. And every hour, a different immigrant group came and prayed and put up signs. And it was so much fun to wave at the tour buses as they went by, because we know they have all the swing votes. And also to see the 5 o'clock group on a Friday, a group of families who had lost children with a big sign saying, give us mercy. We want our families together, scarved, with turbans, with taxi cab drivers changing the shift, beeping, and putting their hands up. Public demonstrations, permitted or not permitted, but always with permission to the intensity in us for something better and for good, honest leadership. So, the title's kind of pugnacious, right? Get off your donkey. And you probably thought it was going to be about action and demands and hyperbolic chanting, si se puede, whose streets? Our streets. Don't you hear it? But I'm not sure that that reads the Mark text at least correctly. In the Mark text, there is a kind of bleakness, a kind of quiet, a kind of animal plod. Get me a donkey. Got to do something. Make sure it hasn't been ridden before. I don't know why it couldn't have been ridden before. If it were me, I would have taken an experienced donkey into Jerusalem, but apparently Jesus wanted his own kind. Tell them I'll give it back. The animal all by itself has a sense of tragedy about it, as does the tone. Oh my God, do we have to do this again? Do you feel that way about going at 1 o'clock this afternoon? Do we have to do this again? Yes. Because when they enter Jerusalem, the people follow, like that great scene in Les Mis. People come out of their houses. They join the parade. When I say get off your donkey, what I mean is this. Get over your past and missing sense of urgency. Be urgent in a quiet way, a convicted way, a firm way, a way that puts one foot in front of the other. Get off your despair, get off your debilitation, get off your denials, get off your delays, and put all your excuses in a box and mail them to the nearest storage facility. So today, there is a demonstration at 1 o'clock from Stonewall back over to the park. It will be as important as the many historical ones I have just mentioned. Why? Because this week, the Supreme Court is going to decide whether or not to uphold the Defense of Marriage Act. Now, I know that's preposterous. And should the Supreme Court uphold the Defense of Marriage Act this week, all hell is going to break loose, right? It would be so outrageous. It would be so absurd. People have had enough of government intruding where it doesn't belong. What is the government doing about marriage anyway? Marriage as an institution does not need governmental defense. It needs to defend itself because marriage is imploding from within, not from without. Marriage, just parenthetically, let's be clear we know, is the most anti-consumerist institution in the world. It is our last best hope against everything being bought and sold and exchanged. When we marry, we say we will stop shopping. Where is Reverend Billy when I need him? When we marry, we say we will stop shopping and that we will stick it out and be stuck with one other person for what is known as forever. If the government really wanted to defend marriage, they could enforce the 8-hour day for workers so people would have time to snuggle and cuddle and drink coffee together in the morning and make love at night. Because we haven't gotten off our donkey about how to protect families, marriage is a pale institution, starting with the gift registry and ending with the astronomical divorce rate. Today, by joining a parade, we can get off our donkey of despair about the foolishness of the government and ride around town. This is important. And one more thing. We can learn to attend to our tone of voice as we hit parades. We can learn to attend to our tone of voice when we ride into Jerusalem, or Union Square, or out from Stonewall, or during joys and concerns. Tone of voice matters. It really matters how we talk to each other. Our best hope for change of leadership is to learn how to talk to each other. Jesus did not demonize the other kings, or the other kind of kings, or the kind of people who probably are still chasing him around somewhere in Jerusalem asking, "Why'd you steal my donkey? I didn't say I wanted to join that parade." Whether it is rampaging Buddhists or workers who still don't have sick days, what is Chris Quinn thinking about? Or the sense that you have that your own marriage or partnership or lack thereof is in danger from somebody, and maybe it's you. Find a donkey, untie the colt, promise to bring it back. Don't disrespect what people have earned. or think. Have respect for the people who have ordinary lives and ordinary commitments and who really don't have that much hope in your parade. And then get to a parade. Amen.